I'd like to welcome everybody to today's presentation. We're going to be talking about how to tax plan better than a CPA. And here's the best part is if you do this right, you're going to end up with way more money that stays in your pocket. We're going to systematize this thing. We're going to make it way easier for you to do. And the idea is to hopefully make sure that everybody who does this comes out of this with something you can use. And I'm going to make this as easy as possible. At the end, I'm going to give you guys a place where you can download a checklist that's going to help you be prepared for everything that you do with your tax people from here until the end of time. And it's going to make it really easy. I would say 30 minutes at most a month will put you in a really good place to be totally prepped, record as you go, and totally knock this thing out of the park. So I'm really excited about that. If I could ask everybody, if you're not already, go ahead and put yourself on mute, just so we don't get any background here, and then we'll get this thing going. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Here's the biggest problem for people around taxes, right? The reality is, if you're a business owner, you don't work on taxes. You're not a tax pro, right? You run your business, you manage employees, you run payroll, you do marketing, you do all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, you're not a tax pro. You're a business owner, right? So I want to make this easy for you. And this is something that's been working against you your whole life, whether you realize it or not. And we want to make sure that you're in a good position to take full advantage of it, right? Because taxes aren't complicated. And if I ask most business owners that I talk to, what do you know about taxes? They don't know what they're doing, right? They're like, I really don't have a clue. I do the best I can. Maybe you show up with your CPA and put them in a position where you dump everything on their desk, and then they go ahead and they do their thing, and they end up with whatever you owe, right? You give them your stuff, they tell you what you owe. That's your relationship with your tax pro. Sometimes they do a little bit more. They call you in December. We want to be way better than that. If you're on this call, you own a business, you probably make good money. You probably want to be doing a whole lot better than that. And so I want to shift the way that you think of these things, because right now you probably see taxes as something you put up with rather than something that's actually worth your effort. Like, a lot of people think taxes are this side thing. And listen, if you would have told me when I was growing up, when you grow up, you're going to do a lot of tax strategy for business owners, I would have probably jumped off a bridge, because taxes seem so boring, right? They seem like they're the worst. And what's even worse than that is you're probably scared to mess things up, so you don't put time into it, because you're like, what if I try? What if I do these things and then I get audited and I go to jail and all this other stuff? I'm going to tell you there are ways to be super good at taxes. Don't take a lot of time. They take a little bit of thinking. Don't take a lot of time, and they're not going to put you in jail. And I'm never going to tell you to do anything that's shady. Like, that's just silly, right? You all make way too much money to risk creating unnecessary stress in your life. What this is about is how to do things right, how to do them efficiently, and how to keep a lot more of the money without so much effort, right? And listen, I have some clients who make $1 million-ish, let's say, right? And they have told me that for years, they were afraid all the way until they filed in October, because they didn't know how much taxes they were going to owe, right? They're making the money, but they're like stockpiling a bunch of it on the side, hoping that at the end of the day, they're going to have enough, right? So this whole 9 months after the year's over, they're holding on to all this cash that's not working for them. They're living in fear. They're not sure they have enough, all because they didn't take the time to learn how to get better at this, right? Once again, you don't need to be a tax pro, but being aware of what's going on overall is worth so much to you. And I want to make sure that you guys know how to do that, right? So you don't have to be scared anymore. Now, I do want to be honest with you. If you don't get this figured out, it's costing you dearly. How much? Well, it's costing more than your kid's college. I know that's crazy to think, right? Because college is so expensive, but it's absolutely nuts. It's costing more than your mortgage payment, right? It's costing more than your business loans. And listen, a lot of you on here, doctors, dentists, have bought businesses. You got a lot of business loans. It's costing you more than all those combined, because literally, if you're in the higher tax brackets, it's costing you 40, 45, maybe as much as 50 cents on the dollar. We filed a return for someone a couple of years ago. He was making almost $1.2 million in a high tax state. He paid $600,000 in taxes. Like, I don't even know how you could do that, but that was the check he wrote, right? So when we start looking at all this stuff, college, your house, your business loans, half of your money is more than all of that combined by a lot, right? We've had other clients that we've worked with that have saved over $250,000 a year in taxes. So this is no small potatoes, and it's something that really, really is a big deal. And listen, most of you might know this, that's why you're here. So what do? You call up your tax pro and you say, hey, I need some help. And what do most pros do? They blow you off. They're like, it's not that big a deal. Don't worry about it. Honestly, most of them, and I don't want to paint tax pros in this light that they don't care. They don't. They're just so busy. A lot of tax people have 200, 500, 700 clients that they have to file tax returns for every single year. So they're just really, really busy. And they're more focused on filing taxes, right, than actually saving you money. And so what do they tell you? Just get used to paying more taxes. It's a first world problem. You make lots of money. Of course, you're going to pay lots of taxes. That's the reality of it. I'm here to tell you it does not have to be that way, right? So why do they have that attitude? A couple of things. One, a lot of these folks are CPAs, and CPAs, if you know anything about the CPA test, it's it's not really about taxes at all. I mean, is there a little bit in there? Yes, but they're more about auditing, reviewing financials, being smart financial people, not necessarily tax people, right? And just like everybody else, CPAs don't have to pay your taxes. So it's not necessarily in their best interest. I know this sounds crazy to save you money because it's a lot of extra work and they don't make any extra money. CPAs do not get paid by how much money they save you on taxes. So it's just as easy for them to not do a great job and make that money than it is to go the extra mile and figure out all the stuff and do all the extra to make the same money, right? It is human nature. And I'm not trying to be a skeptic here because I'm really not. But it's human nature that people will do the things that they're incentivized to do. If more work does not equal more income, guess what? They're not going to do the extra mile. And the truth is, as a business owner, most of you are like a 1% client for them. So what do I mean when I say that? It's most of their clients are W-2 earners who make, 75, 100, 150, maybe 200,000 bucks, right? They have one W-2, maybe they have a piece of rental real estate, some money in the stock market. It's very, very, very simple. As a business owner, you've got equipment loans, business loans, student loans. You've got all kinds of pieces of equipment. You've got a much higher income, so your taxes are a lot more expensive proportionally, right? As you make more money, each dollar you make, more of it goes to the government, right? There's tax brackets that way. And if you don't understand that, I've done some other trainings that kind of go through some of that. But at the end of the day, this is why your CPA doesn't do it. And if they had to pay your taxes, I think it would be different. If they got paid on how much you've saved in taxes, it would be different. They don't, and there are reasons for that. But at the end of the day, this is how the system's set up. And the truth is, it's just not right. You guys work too hard as business owners. You take too much risk, too much anxiety, too much responsibility to not keep more of the money you make. And that's exactly why I'm here. That's why we're doing this. I used to own a small business. My first business was a house flipping business, right? And this is why I'm so passionate about this. So I want to share it. When I ran my house flipping business, I made really good money. I was in my early 30s, making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I would have owed a lot of taxes, except I was very smart about it. And I also, real estate's also very good for tax write-offs. But at the end of the day, I still had no idea. And I lost sleep, right? Because I'm like, I'm making all this money, but how much do I owe in taxes? I don't know. It was a mystery to me. And it was scary. I remember writing those big fat checks in a cold sweat, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I have enough money to do this, right? And a lot of what that turned into is I would make money this year, and then next year I would find out how much I owed, and then I had to spend the next year earning enough money to pay those taxes, right? But then I didn't have money for the following year taxes. So I was always like a year behind in taxes. I mean, I was doing it legally, I was paying on time, but the thing was I didn't have a system to make sure I knew what I needed to save, had it set aside, had a plan for it, and was optimizing it. None of that was happening. I was just pretty good at a couple of key tax breaks, and I did have a good CPA who knew how to do some strategies like cost segregation and some other things, which are really important in real estate, right? So I know how scary this can be, and I know that it can be eat up all your profits, and I know how hard it is to work your tail off to not be able to keep as much as you make, right? As much as you deserve. So, whoops, that took me the wrong direction. So just to be clear, I'm not a CPA or a CFP. I have business partners that are tax professionals. We have people who are investment advisors. This is not that kind of advice, right? I'm a tax and wealth strategist. I don't know your situation. So I just want to be clear. Don't just take everything I do and just go do it. Work with your tax pro, work with your tax team, find the right things for you. But this is going to make a huge difference for you. And this comes from me working with over 2,000 small business owners over the last 15 years and helping them with taxes, finances, growth, building wealth, etc., expanding and growing and scaling businesses, the whole thing. I've seen the picture, and you guys know this with whatever you do. When you've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of something, you see the patterns. You know what works, you know what doesn't work. You know what ends well and what doesn't end well. I'm here to help shortcut this for you. And we've saved, in the past 10 years or so, we've saved $50 million or more for people in taxes. And I want to help you take full advantage of some of that. Okay. So I want to be super clear. Today's not about tips and tricks. It's not about how to pay your kids or do those kinds of things. If you want that information, go to our website, biglifefinancial.com. There's a tax book there with 15 tax tips. It breaks everything down. It's a home run. You'll get tons of tips and tactics there. The other thing you can do is for clients who are here, or if you're watching this, we are offering for right now a free tax review. We'll go back 3 years, look at your taxes, and we'll go through some of those tips, tactics, and tricks with you on that. This is not that, right? So if you want those, or follow me on social media, Derick Van Ness on Instagram, or YouTube or whatever, you will get a lot of tips and tricks. This is not that, right? This is a whole different thing. This is about an approach that makes all the tips and tricks work, right? If you have the right mindset and approach about this, all the other stuff is really easy to implement. A lot of people are looking for shortcuts. It's not about shortcuts, right? It's about a mindset. And that's something that nobody talks about, but it's the key to building wealth. It's a framework. It's a way that you approach things. Like I said, if you just blow taxes off as something unimportant, you're never going to learn them. If you blow marketing off with your business, you're never going to get good at it. If you think company culture is a waste of time, you're never going to get good at it. And most of these things have what's called an unseen cost. An unseen cost means nobody comes to you and says, hey, if you'd had better company culture, you could have made XYZ more dollars with your business with no more effort. Same thing with taxes. Nobody comes to you and says, hey, if you had done these couple of key things, I guess we do this with the tax review, but if you've done these couple of key things, you would have saved 10, 20, 50, $100,000 in taxes, right? This is the key to doing this proactively. So I want you to change your mindset and think about taxes as an income stream for your business, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not about how much money comes in the top line. It's about how much comes out the bottom line and how much you get to keep, right? So what if you could add an income stream worth 20% to your bottom line, and it only cost you 1, maybe 2 hours a month? Would you do that? Right? Like, so let's say you had an employee you could hire. They cost you nothing. They took 1 or 2 hours a week, or 1 or 2 hours a month, and you made an extra 20%. So if you make 500,000 now, you would have made an extra $100,000. If you make $1 million now, you would have made an extra $200,000. If you make $200,000, you'd be worth an extra $40,000 for you. That's really what's on the table for most people on this watching this video. If you're just getting started in business or you're new, may not quite be the same for you, but a lot of our clients earn 350, 400,000 or more. This is a very realistic number, and that's all it takes, right? So think of it as an income stream, more money in your pocket for very, very little effort, and no extra employees and no extra risk and no extra headaches, just a simple system to follow. Okay. So, um, I've kind of already hit this point. So tax strategy, I want you to think of it as business strategy, not just taxes. This is part of your business, just like you would look at your expenses, just like you would look at your overhead, just like you would look at your profit or your revenue coming in, sales, marketing, all that. We think of that as business, but somehow we kick taxes and put it in the backyard. We say, it's not really part of it. But the truth is, tax strategy is business strategy. It's financial strategy, and it's wealth building strategy. These are all tied together. At the end of the day, how much money you have dictates what you can do with that money and those resources. So it's super, super important to get that right, okay, and really change it. And it's what creates the better quality of life. So give it that extra hour a month, because every dollar you save in taxes is the same as a new dollar earned, right? So let's get into this deeper, right? How do you treat your taxes like a business? This is where you're going to start taking notes. If you don't have a piece of paper or something to write it down, go grab that. I'm going to have a quick sip of coffee here and we're going to dig into this, okay? But I'm telling you, this is going to be a game changer. Okay, so here we go. The first thing is, I want you to start thinking of taxes as a multi-year strategy rather than 1 year at a time. Now, this might seem obvious the second I say it, but almost everybody I know thinks about taxes 1 year at a time, right? Makes zero sense. Like, ask yourself, what if you ran your business 1 year at a time? You wouldn't buy equipment because that's super expensive in 1 year at a time. You wouldn't buy real estate because that's 1 year at a time. That's not going to do you any good, right? So what if you ran your business 1 year at a time? You would make none of those investments. Your income would be way smaller. So why are we running our taxes that way? Why are we planning only for this year? When you start thinking multi-year, you can do things this year that can create tax breaks for many years into the future. Sometimes you can look into the past. When we do tax reviews, we find all kinds of things. We used to do the research and development credits. Those have now come back. You can go back 3 years and do that. But if you're only looking at this year, you're going to miss that. When you look at something like cost segregation, which is an accelerated way or a faster way to depreciate real estate in your if you own your real building or buildings, that if you look at in a 1 year strategy, it doesn't make, I mean, it makes a difference for sure. But when you look at it multi-year, it makes a huge, huge difference, because if you can save taxes today instead of 30 or 40 years from now, that's a lot of extra money, right? So we don't want to tax plan that way. We need a longer planning horizon. So let me teach you guys this concept of the planning horizon, because it's valuable in business, but it's super valuable with taxes, right? So a planning horizon is how far in the future you look to plan things. And I'll be honest with you, there are large organizations, there are countries, but the most successful groups in the world, they have like 100-year planning horizon. The Catholic Church literally buys land in places they think are going to be developed in 100 years, right? Like, these are groups and organizations and people who think that far ahead. I'm not telling you need to think 100 years ahead, but I am saying the further ahead you think, the more you can do the right things now to get better outcomes long term. Most of us are in this business game for a while. We've got time to do the right thing and build. So think of it this way. Let's say you plan for a vacation, but you were going tomorrow, right? So very short planning horizon. This is how most people do taxes, right? Call me up after they have their turkey dinner and they say, hey, I got to do tax planning. It's like planning a vacation tomorrow. So what would happen if you were going to do that? First thing is, hotels and flights would be extra expensive. You're getting the last minute, rip you off rate. right? You're paying full blast for everything, and it's as expensive as possible. You'd have no options. You probably couldn't get first class. You'd have to get whatever seats are left. You'd get whatever tours were left. You'd get whatever hotel rooms were left. So you'd pay maximum and you would get minimum. Now, let's expand that planning horizon and just say you were going to plan a trip a year in advance. How different would it be? You could look and you could get the best hotel flights and rates, right? You can get the best deals. You can get the best option for tours, special access, behind the scenes, all the stuff that everybody would love to do if you're going to go to a new place and see cool stuff, right? And be a part of it. You would also get to pick from the best of what's offered versus what's left over. This is the difference in having a longer planning horizon versus a shorter one. It is a game changer in how you approach things. So the bottom line is the further you plan ahead, the better your results. Like you almost can't screw it up. I'm sure somebody out there can, but I'm being honest with you. Like if you just plan way in advance and you have the time to do these things, especially if you've got a system, which we're going to get into in just a sec, it's a totally different outcome for you. And I want to make sure that you take full advantage of that. Okay. So as I said, taxes work the same way with your planning, right? So as part of your business, planning matters. The second thing that's really important here, besides having that longer planning horizon, is you need to evaluate your tax team. So why is the word team here in bold, right? Why is it in all capitals? Because taxes can be, especially for someone at your level, a very sophisticated thing, right? So successful business owners have a team, not just one person. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have like your main point of contact. We really want that. But you want people who have capabilities, specialty people, people who understand different specialty credits, specialty, like I mentioned, cost segregation, that takes a specialist, right? People who are specialized in different types of entity structuring and setting businesses up. There's, these can be attorneys, these can be bookkeepers. Having a good bookkeeper that runs your books effectively and not only records the numbers, but can help you to understand what do those mean for my business, right? And the reality is taxes are too complicated for one person to do a good job. It's not that one person couldn't, it's just that when that one person has a ton of clients, they can't, right? They have to specialize to some extent. Most tax pros I see are really good at filing taxes. They're not good at finding strategies, implementing all these other things that I've alluded to. If you go through the tax book I mentioned on our website and look at those 15 different tax breaks in there, a lot of times, some of them are investments, some of them are donation strategies, some of them are depreciation, some of them are industry specific. There's credits, there's so many things. Somebody can't be an expert at all of it. It's just too complicated. And we've taken that approach because, listen, I can't know everything, right? That's why I'm not a CPA. Do I know how it all works high level? Yes. Do I get in the trenches and file tax returns? No, that is not my part in the tax strategy and the team for us, right? So what does a good team look like? A good team has a leader, a thinker, and a strategist. First and foremost, you need someone who can think on your behalf because you're not the expert, right? It makes so much sense when I say it, right? But is this the experience you're getting from your people? My best guess is it's not if you're here, right? So you need to make sure your team's good. You've got people doing number crunching. You've got specialists, like I alluded to. You need to have a team so that someone can think on your behalf. Now, I want to be super clear. This does not mean you never have to think, okay? You need to think for yourself, but you also need someone who knows more about it than you, thinking on your behalf strategically. You need someone with a proactive mindset. Now, I'm going to say this in defense of a lot of these tax pros. They mean to be proactive, they're just too busy and they aren't, right? And so that's just a nature of the business. And you need somebody focused on making money for you, right? This is where I think there's the disconnect. You think your tax pro is there to save you money. They think they're there to do your taxes accurately. Those are two different things. They don't have to be at odds with one another, I would think of them as a hierarchy. Getting your taxes done properly and filed on time, super, super important. Tax strategy on top of that and saving you money is probably a secondary priority for them, and it falls way behind it. But to you, this is more important, but this needs to get done. So making sure that you have someone who's focused on making you money, not just getting your taxes filed on time, is critical. So the first thing was having a better planning horizon. Second thing is having a clear and executable plan. The third thing, I'm sorry, was having a good team. The third thing is actually having a clear and executable plan, right? We want to make sure that if you're going to do this, it needs to be something that you understand and that can actually be done. And this is where the rubber meets the road. The first thing I'm going to tell you is to do this, you have to plan all year. Planning is not a December thing. That's how most people do taxes, just like planning the vacation tomorrow. It kind of works, but not really. It's pretty bad, right? So that means you plan in the beginning of the year. That means that you are going to keep track of things along the way. We're going to get into exactly how to do that and make it easy in just a second here. And it means that you need a system. When we have systems, things are really easy. And I'm such an advocate of this, is if we know exactly what needs to be done, there are checklists and steps. It's super easy to do. When you have to sit down and figure it out every single time, eventually it just doesn't happen, right? I don't know about you, but like with exercise and workouts, if I have a trainer or someone planning my workouts, here's when you're going to work out, here's what you're going to do, here's when you're going to show up, it's easy for me. I stay in shape, I do really well. When I don't have that and I have to wake up and decide, am I going to work out today or am I not going to work out today? What am I going to do? How do I feel? All of this complexity starts to happen instead of just, I know what to do, I show up, I do it, I get the result, right? I want it to be like that for you. We want to take the thinking out of it for the most part and have a really good system that helps you make it easy, right? So how do we do that? The key to this is a monthly review. And this is where this 30-ish minutes a month comes in, right? With a monthly review, you're going to go through your P&L, right? Your profit and loss. If you don't know how to read a profit and loss, this is not tax advice. This is just business thinking. You need to learn how to do it. Understand, where's my money coming from? Where's my money going to? And how to read it. If you don't know how to do this, this monthly review is going to make a huge difference for you, because if you have that data, you can make good decisions, not just good tax decisions, but good business decisions, right? It's all tied together. This should take 5 minutes, right? Document what has happened or what you think is going to happen in the future, right? We want to be looking at just keeping track of things as we go. When you get to the end of the year and it's April 15th the following year and they're asking you, what did you do last February? You're probably not going to remember very well unless it was like a major thing, right? If you do this as you go, just quickly take care of things, it is a game changer and it makes life so much easier and so much more accurate. And when you're accurate, you can push tax strategies all the way up to the edge because you know your data is exact, right? Then you want to be able to make adjustments, reimbursements, etc. There, as a business owner, sometimes you have to pay for something personally and you need to readjust it for a trip. You need to reimburse yourself or somebody for something. All those weird transactions that are a little bit tricky, they can be handled along the way, makes it so much easier, right? And then you can ensure that your money is getting saved as you go, right? Once again, I'm going to give you a checklist on how to do this, but if you save taxes as you go, it's super easy. If you don't, it is really hard, right? And so we want to make sure that you're doing that. So when you meet with your tax pro, if you've been doing these reviews, the things you want to do are you want to meet quarterly. Now, I'm going to tell you this. You need to take ownership of your own taxes. If you're counting on somebody else to do it, that's like blaming your trainer because you're not in shape. No, you're the one who eats, you're the one who sleeps, you're the one who shows up for workouts, you're the one who puts in the exercise or doesn't. A trainer cannot make you get in shape. Same thing. Your tax pro cannot make you a better tax person. They'll help, but if you take ownership, it's a game changer. I'll give you a tip here that nobody ever talks about. If you want to meet with your CPA quarterly, they're going to say, oh, that's great when they sign you up and you join. You need to put it on the calendar. And before you leave this month's meeting, you need to have the next quarter on the books. If you do that, you will meet with your CPA proactively. If you don't do that, they're going to forget, you're going to forget, it's never going to happen, and you're going to be in that same boat in December. So you have to schedule those meetings in advance. If you do this, it will transform your awareness around taxes. Even if you guys show up, let's say it's second quarter, right? Or we just finished out second quarter, we're in third quarter. Say it's third quarter, you show up for a meeting, and you're like, what do we talk about? And they're like, I don't know. Tell me what's going on. They're going to ask you questions. You guys are going to go through things. Once again, I've got a checklist for all of this. But at the end of the day, you're going to be way better off than if you guys never had that meeting, right? And the truth is, if you can see on the calendar, oh, I'm going to be meeting with my CPA or my tax pro this week, you're probably going to look at some stuff and it's going to help you be aware of what's happening. And awareness is such a key thing, right? You want to document changes, questions, projections. So as things are happening, you want to be writing this stuff down. Let me give you a simple example. Every business is supposed to have an annual meeting, right? Where you come together as the owners, even if it's just you, and you're supposed to look at what's the plan? What are we doing as the business? Let's review things. This is where things like documentation can be huge, because let's say you and your spouse own your business and you want to go on a trip where you're going to talk about it. You show up there and your family, of course, is there with you, but you can, at that point, you can do a board meeting as long as you sit down, you have a real agenda, you have real business purposes, and you write those down. You have real minutes. What did we talk about and why? And this could be as straightforward as reviewing last year's taxes, reviewing this year's projections, talking about what you see in the next 12, 24, 60 months, right? Lengthening that planning horizon and just documenting all that. That becomes a real business trip. Now, this isn't tax advice. Talk to your CPA, but that can become a real business trip because you're doing real business on it with real notes and real documentation. So much of what takes something from gray area to black and white in a good way is documentation. There are a lot of things that can be written off, but you need to understand, what do we need to do? How do we need to document it so that we can clearly defend our position? The IRS doesn't always think that your trips to Hawaii are going to be write-offable. And I'm not that big on writing off unnecessary trips, but if you really are going to do that and you really need to do a board meeting, you may as well do it in a beautiful place and get some tax breaks from it, right? So make these things legitimate through documentation. Super, super important. And documentation is also important. Like, we had a couple of clients last year where their prior tax pro literally skipped or lost a bunch of their depreciation. They had hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment, just didn't get depreciated. So they just overpaid like $40,000 or $50,000 in taxes. They didn't know any better. When you document this as you go, you're buying new equipment, boom, it goes on the books. I had another client who, they had a baby. CPA didn't know, didn't put it on there, right? People bought a house, people got married, nothing changed. They need to be documenting this. Your CPA is not following you on social media. They don't know what you're doing. And it's easy for you to forget because you're not thinking in terms of taxes. You're thinking in terms of living your life, running your business, right? So if you can just document these things, you're going to be in the top 1% of tax planners. You're going to be so much more prepared, and it's going to save you loads and loads and loads of cash. Now, I know this can be a little overwhelming. Like I said, in just a second here, I'm going to give you a link where you can download a copy of this and a copy of this checklist. If you want to get a tax review, you can get a tax review, right? But let's just compare what's typically happening. Typically, people are only looking at things 1 year at a time. And these are tax pros, right? Typically, they don't look at it as an income stream. They look at it as a necessary evil, right? They don't plan proactively, maybe right at the end of the year at best. A lot of tax planners don't even meet with people until after the year's over, and you really can't do very much after that, right? They don't have a team. Maybe it's a single person. Even if that person's sharp and has a good heart, there's limitations, a lot of limitations to that. They don't have a system for you to follow. It's all guesswork. It's all duct tape. It's all super glue. It is not structured properly, right? Now that you're aware of this, how you can approach taxes differently is you can look at them in multiple years, right? Not just how does this impact this year, but what are the next couple of years? If I can see that next year is going to be a huge income this year and this year is a low income year, maybe we make some decisions differently. If we can see that we're saving to buy a building in the next couple of years, we want to make some tax moves that make sense for that, right? There are a lot of things that can be done. You can have a different mindset now, and you can turn taxes into a new income stream. Like I said, if you're in a higher tax bracket, I don't think it's unrealistic to add 10, 15, 20, sometimes 25% to your bottom line if you do this properly. That's a lot of extra money, right? You can plan all year round easily because now you'll have a system, just a checklist. You sit down once a month, and I would suggest you schedule it. You know what? On the first of the month, every month, the 15th, the 10th, whatever day of the month, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to spend 30 minutes, just put it right in your calendar. You sit down, boom, you go through these key things, right? Review your P&L, what happened, document it. Very simple, right? And you'll be able to use the checklist for that. And then you'll be right on top of it. And when you meet with your CPA quarterly or your tax pro quarterly, you bring that paper with you and you go through it with them. And they're going to be like, holy cow, you're killing it, right? And they may even make suggestions. Hey, do this, a little more of that, a little less of this. And they'll let you know what they want so that they can crush it for you on the tax side, right? You'll find the right team. You now know that you need a team. You need more than one person. If this person doesn't have the bandwidth to help you, you're at the level where you need a CPA or a tax pro that's up here, not one that's down here. And you'll know how to document as you go, right? At the end of the day, this is going to help you keep a lot more money with minimal work. And I always say this: tax planning, by the inch, it's a cinch. By the yard, it's hard. If you do this as you go, it's super easy. If you don't, it's really, really hard. So stop relying on unresponsive tax pros because you deserve better. You have to take control of your own financial independence. Taxes are a huge piece of that, right? And when you become good at this, it does become a new income stream. And I want that for you because you already work too hard. I want to see you keeping all that extra money. This is enough money to pay for your kids' college. It's enough money to double, for a lot of people, double or triple what they're going to have in retirement. All it takes is a little bit of thought, a system, and a commitment on your end. So if you'd like to see exactly how I do it, all you got to do is download your tax planning webinar. If you're on Zoom, obviously you can use your phone and you can scan this. If not, just go to biglifefinancial.com/tax-plan-webinar. If you go there, you'll be able to download it. Also, when you're there, if you want to, you can set up a 3-year tax review. When you put the two together, right, looking at the tips, tactics, and strategies, and you put them together with this approach that will allow you to do even more of those in the future because you'll be proactively documenting it, it completely changes how everything goes. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. Feel free to reach out via email or whatever, or click the link here down below in the slide, and I will see you on the other side. But I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for taking the time. This is something that I'm really passionate about because if you do it right, it just helps you keep so much more money. It helps your quality of life, which is the real game we're in. You don't have to take a bunch of unnecessary risk, and you'll just feel better knowing that you're in the driver's seat of where you want to go with your life. So go ahead and grab your checklist. If you have any questions, reach out to us, let us know, and we'll take it from there. So really appreciate you guys being here, and can't wait to see you guys on the next one because we do these pretty much every single month. Thanks, guys.